Our first inaugural episode of Spicy Science Spotlight, hosted by Cville Comm-UNI-ty. My name is Andrew Chen. I'm joined here by Veronica Weser, who is a PhD from the University of Virginia, or postdoc. Recently, PhD graduate from the University of Virginia Psychology Department. You currently work in Per Setterberg's lab, is that right?
Yep, and also Denny Proffitt's lab jointly.
Oh, okay, awesome. So, for our first-time viewers, the premise of this show is to have Veronica answer questions while eating increasingly hotter chicken wings. But in this case, we have cauliflower wings because you're a vegetarian. Let's just go ahead and get started with the first sauce, and this is Capital City Mambo sauce. It shouldn't be very spicy. I think we'll be fine with this, so let's go ahead and try it.
Yeah, that's just delicious.
Yeah, that's just good sauce. So my first question for you, you're an accomplished fencer. Can you talk a little bit about how you got into it, and like, are you still competing today? That kind of.
Yeah, of course. So like most fencers, I got into it because I was really into movies like Princess Bride and Lord of the Rings and all of those sort of action, medieval times, sword and sorcery type movies. And I feel like that's a pretty standard fencer answer.
So did you grow up kind of being like, Inigo Montoya, you killed my father, prepare to die?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, that was the goal.
So do you still compete today?
I haven't been for the last year because I really needed to buckle down and get my PhD done.
Gotcha.
But now that I'm a postdoc, I'm hoping to really get back in the competition.
So I know there's like different kind of weapons in fencing. There's like épée, there's foil, there's saber. Am I right?
Yes.
So do you have a preferred weapon?
Oh, heck yes. I fence épée and only épée.
Okay. So what's so appealing about épée versus like foil?
So I would say that foil and saber are both a little bit faster paced, and they have a type of rule system called right of way, which makes it a little bit more into like a gamified version of fencing, I feel like. Whereas épée is, you hit first, you can hit anywhere on the body, and what that does is it means that épée matches are much more slow, and you're kind of like setting traps for your opponent, and I feel like it's a really mental game with a physical component, whereas the other two are a bit more physical. And of course there's physical ways to fence épée as well, but that's...
So it's just kind of like feels more strategic in a way?
Yeah, definitely all about setting traps.
One other thing I wanted to ask about your fencing experiences is that since you do a lot of work with kind of like body perception and body kind of like awareness, do you think that your research on that has kind of like affected the way you approach fencing at all?
Yeah, definitely. So some of the research on tool use shows that you have to kind of build up this mental representation of the tool and incorporate that with your body, and it takes time, usually about 15 minutes. And so as a result of knowing that research, when I'm in like game time, when I'm at a tournament, I never put my épée down because I want to make sure my mind-body tool connection, representation, extended peripersonal space completely goes down the length of my sword so that I have a full incorporation.
Okay, so that kind of makes sense in the way that some people feel like it's like an extension of your body.
Exactly.
We're going to introduce our second wing right now, and this one is Crystal Hot Sauce from Louisiana's Pure, and this should be slightly more spicy, I think, so let's give it a shot. Okay. A little more heat. So my second question for you is about your cat. So some people think that Sphinx cats, because they're hairless, they look weird because they're all like rainbow. So what is so appealing about them to you, and why do you love Artemis so much?
So this is my cat Artemis on my t-shirt, and she's amazing. I also was of the camp that Sphinx cats look kind of weird, and I met Artemis, my cat, kind of on a whim as a joke because I've been wanting to get a cat for a long time, but I kept complaining to people about how I was going to have to spend so much time vacuuming up shit. had
Oh.
hair. And someone was like, oh, just get a space cat. And I was like, oh, like I could even find one in Charlottesville, Virginia. But it turns out there's a breeder in Charlottesville,
Oh.
Virginia. So after making this joke, I had to go.
Yeah.
So she has an amazing personality, and Sphinx cats in general are really hypersocial. They tend to bond really strongly with their owners. And because they're naked, they get cold really easily. So she's like this cute little heat seeker and always wants to be in the crook of my arm or in my lap or on my shoulder. So
That's amazing. Yeah, so it's like kind of almost out of necessity too.
Yeah, exactly.
That they're cuddly.
Yep. So she's named after the Greek goddess of the hunt, and specifically after the story of Artemis the huntress transforming a male hunter who came to spy on Artemis while she was bathing naked in the river. She transformed him into a stag, and he was devoured by his hounds. So Artemis looks kind of weird. I wanted her to have a really powerful name, not like Poon or Raisin or something like that, so that she would feel empowered to get back at the haters.
Right, and she's also naked.
She's naked,
Yeah,
exactly.
so it fits.
It fits. Yes.
All right, so wing number 3, the classic, Frank's Red Hot original. So this is like the staple of the New York buffalo wing. So let's dig in. All right,
Also good. It's like more vinegary than number
Yeah.
2 was.
we're still in it. All right, so my third question for you is that you spent some time in Japan, and I think you're also fluent in Japanese, is that right? So how did you end up like being in Japan for like, was it for research or like just an exchange program?
Yeah, so when I was really little, I really wanted to be a Pokemon master. And my mom told me that in order to be a Pokemon master, I'd have to speak Japanese, because obviously the Pokemon only live in Japan. And I was 8 and I fell for this, and I was like, all right, sign me up for Japanese lessons. And then I got really into the language and the culture, so I went periodically throughout high school. And then after I graduated from college, I got a Fulbright fellowship to do research in Japan, so I lived there a little over a year doing that.
One of the things I find about Japanese is that it's like phonetically fairly easy to pronounce all of like the consonants and vowels and the syllables, but it is extremely complex in terms of the span of its vocabulary. Do you kind of find that?
Yeah, I think it has a lot of similarities to Spanish, which I think in general English speakers are pretty comfortable with in terms of vowels and consonants, with few exceptions. And then, yeah, the vocabulary is pretty expansive, and I think the reading is quite difficult because you have to learn the Chinese characters.
Yeah. They essentially have like 3 writing alphabets almost.
Yep.
Like the kanji and the hiragana and the katakana.
Exactly.
So it does add up in terms of the amount of stuff you have to study and memorize.
Which is why reading and writing disabilities in children are so fascinating.
Do you think that like that added dimension of like multiple alphabets kind of like changes things as opposed to somewhere like that uses just a more Latin alphabet?
Could be. A lot of children present with like disabilities or just they have trouble with only 1 to 3 alphabets, which I think is terribly fascinating. And it makes it really nice to study them in kind of like a control alphabet and experimental alphabet, as opposed to just English long letters.
Do you have any like favorite experiences from Japan at all?
Well, I have an experience where I ate fugu, which is the poisonous pufferfish. You hear about that?
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
did an exchange in high school, and I was staying with a family, and they lived out of their restaurant. And I knew it was a really fancy, classy restaurant, but I wasn't exactly sure what the type of food was. And so one day, towards the end of my week-long exchange staying with this family, I came out for breakfast, and there was this super ornate certificate on the breakfast table, just like gorgeous calligraphy, which was like too gorgeous and fancy for me to read. So I was just like, oh cool, certificate, like, wonder what that's doing here. And so they brought out the first plate, and it was like just beautiful sashimi, so thin you could see right through the fish. So that's the raw fish, the sliced raw fish. We were like, enjoy. Of course, I dug in and ate it all, and it was amazing. And then they were like, how was that? Just all of it. I was like, oh, it was great. Yeah, I loved it. And really nonchalant. And I guess I kind of disappointed them when they're nonchalant. So they brought out another dish. And this time it was cooked fish, but it was still just like this great texture, almost transparent, totally beautiful. And I just wolfed that down. And they're like, what did you think of that? And I was like, yeah, this is great. This is the best breakfast ever. And then they were like, so they brought out a third dish, and this time it was a soup. And so I just ate all of that, and it was the same like gorgeous fish. And I was starting to get the feeling it was probably the same fish throughout. But it was. And finally they were like, what did you think of the food? And I was like, I could have died. And they're like,
They just surprised
each
you
of
with
those
that.
plates was about $100. And I was like, I could have died, and I just ate $300 of your business's profit. I was meant to have understood that the certificate was my host father's certificate saying that he was allowed to prepare food because he had passed all the state required exams to make sure he wouldn't poison anyone eating it.
So let's move on to our fourth way.
All right.
And let's see what this one is. This is Original Anchor Bar Buffalo Wing Sauce by Frank and Teresa. No idea who they are, but I'm sure it's a good sauce. So.
Thanks, Frank and Teresa.
Yeah. It's actually very tasty.
That's really good.
Yeah.
I like that.
A lot of flavor in there. So you do a lot of work with VR. What about VR makes, like, the graphical fidelity is relatively low for a lot of VR games nowadays, but it just, everything seems so visceral once you're wearing the headset and like fully immersed in it. What about it? What about VR do you think makes it seem so like realistic?
Well, my advisor has been doing VR since the 80s, so you can imagine the graphical infidelity of back then. But I think people, I'm really interested in multi-sensory integration, and that's what VR gets quite well. So even though you only have vision, you also have some audio, and then you have this profound sense of being in a place where you can turn your head, and the visual scene changes accordingly.
Right.
And I think that's what makes it so transportive, just because you have that redundant sensory information.
Okay.
You feel like if I can turn my head in this environment and get the appropriate feedback, I must really be in this environment, even if it looks like a cartoon.
I don't know if you've ever done like those VR games where they like raise you up on a platform and then they tell you to like jump off.
Uh-huh.
I find those terrifying.
Yeah,
I can't do it.
love putting people through those. And I find that I'm just so fascinated by the technology and by the experience that I'm completely happy to like jump off a 40-foot building in VR, or like crawl into a pit of snakes in VR, or like hang out with spiders in VR, or dinosaurs, whatever, because I just want to see what the experience is like. But I love watching other people who maybe are a little bit less experience-driven than me, who just get totally wrapped up in the feeling of impending doom.
Yeah. So what you're saying basically is that like once we're in the Matrix, you're gonna be Neo.
Yeah, that's the plan, basically.
You're gonna be jumping across buildings
I'm
and like
so
stopping
ready for
bullets.
that. Bending spoons, it's just back bending. Yeah, it's gonna be great. And I already know how to fence, right? So I'm like happy
Yeah.
there.
You already know the kung fu.
Yes.
Awesome. Do you have a favorite VR game?
Yes. My favorite game is I Expect You to Die.
What is that? I've never heard of it.
It's awesome. You're a secret agent, and the reason I love this game so much is they took all the limitations of VR and they just implemented features of the game. So a big limitation of VR is that the virtual environment can be giant, but usually your space, your track area that you can move around in is really tiny. So they just made the entire game take place seated in a chair, which is brilliant. And you never feel like I'm constricted, I'm confined to sitting in this chair, because maybe you're in a car, or you're in a submarine, or you're like in a one of those platforms strapped to the outside of a building doing window washing. It just feels totally natural that you can't move very much, which is genius. And so you play a secret agent, and you're trying to foil the plot of evildoers, and each level is like an escape room. So there's some kind of crazy problem that you have to solve using the objects in the environment around you.
So what kind of VR sets do you work with? Do you work with like an HTC Vive or an Oculus, or do you kind of just like do multiple?
It depends on the study. So we have both systems in our lab, and I definitely prefer the Oculus if we're doing any precise hand stuff. I find that the Oculus touch controllers are a little bit better tracked, a little bit more reliable. But the Vive, if people are moving around a lot in a bigger environment, has more reliable tracking for bigger space. So we use the Vive for that reason. And our lab is about to get a Tobii eye tracker HTC Vive. So that'll be really great. And I imagine once we have that, we'll be doing almost all Vive stuff. So.
Oh my goodness. So, hot sauce number 5. Halfway there. So this is horse tooth hot sauce, the green, which has habanero, tomatillo, and serrano peppers in there.
All right.
And it's all natural, which is nice to know.
I see the hot meter is all the way up to the
yeah,
top, so we're
they have
getting
their own
in there.
temperature gauge.
Yeah, that's good.
And
I'm a
the
big fan of
sauce.
tomatillos because I'm from New Mexico, so
Oh yeah, like green
I'm
chili.
digging it.
All right, so this is a big question. Star Wars, Star Trek, or Battlestar Galactica?
I mean, maybe it's a big question for you, but for me the answer is so obvious, it's trivial. It's Star Trek all the way, hands down, no debating. I mean, being a Jedi would be sweet since I love swords and fencing. I think I'd be a great Jedi, but it's all about Star Trek.
Awesome. So what about Star Trek appeals to you the most over other sci-fi worlds like Star Wars?
So I think that most science fiction have a sort of dystopian bent to them. And I love Star Trek because it's totally utopian. It's a world that's all about cooperation, collaboration, interspecies harmony, and science and exploration. And so, like, what could be better than that?
Right. So one of the things I've also heard about, like, people preferring Star Trek over Star Wars is that, like, diplomacy is a big thing in
Yes.
Star Wars. In Star Trek, sorry.
Yes.
Star
Not
Wars
in
is
Star
just like
Wars.
shooting lasers at people.
Yeah, blowing things up.
It's like, we don't like this, we're just going to shoot at it with a giant laser cannon.
Yeah, so some of the most important characters in Star Trek are the diplomats and the counselors and the scientists. My mom is a huge Trekkie, so she watched the original series when she was in college. And then, as far as I know, I've been watching Star Trek my entire life because Next Generation started when I was born, and she would just like have me watch it. So I even have these vague 3-year-old self memories of watching Captain Picard and thinking he was bomb. And so I've seen most of the series 2 to 3, maybe 4 times.
We're on sauce number 6 now, and this is, you know, good old sriracha, the staple cock sauce. So let's try it out, see how it compares to all the other sauces. You've made resin hands for your dissertation work. So how did you teach yourself how to do it, and also, like, how do they relate to what you were doing for your dissertation?
All right, well, my dissertation was on tool use, and that actually stemmed from my interest in fencing. I wanted originally to study fencers, but it was too difficult to get giant fencing swords like as experimental props. It was too difficult to get really good fencers. But what UVA undergrads in the participant pool do have a wealth of different levels of experience is chopsticks. So I made a rubber hand holding chopsticks for my dissertation. Here it is. It's a cast of my own hand. I was able to teach myself how to do this by watching YouTube videos from like movie special effects people who would make casts of actors' hands if they were going to get like chopped off, or if they needed like a dismembered zombie hand or whatever. So you have to mix up this type of silicone mold that's totally skin safe. So it comes in this big powder form, and the powder is super toxic if you inhale it. So I just like set up shop somewhere in Gilmer and have a full gas mask and like rubber gloves all the way up to here. I don't have like a fume hood like you people in the bio area do. So I'm just like in the hallway somewhere with like my glasses and my gas mask and just shooing undergrads away to make sure they don't inhale these toxic fumes. And you mix it up with water, and then as soon as it's combined with the water, it becomes skin safe and less likely to be inhaled. And then you you stick your hand in there, and you just have to wait for like 40 to an hour long without moving. The more you move, the more wrecked the cast gets. And then you can wiggle your hand out of there very carefully, not ripping the material, and then you just pour resin in. The resin's also super toxic, so you know, I've got my glasses and my gas mask, shooing off undergrads, mixing these 2-part compounds.
What component did these hands play in your research? Did you use them as like props or
Yeah.
illusion?
So I was really interested in whether and how people incorporate tools into their body, and whether you have to be an expert tool user or if you can be a novice. And so through the course of my dissertation work, I ended up testing a lot of different tools. And as a result of that, I had to make a lot of different hands. And so I just brought 3 because I thought, you know, any more than that might be unreasonable. But this hand is one of my favorite hands because, you know, you can hold yourself.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's a good tool to test. And this hand is actually for holding tweezers, which is another tool that I looked at. So I was manipulating whether tools that function in the same way your hand functions are easier to incorporate into your body. Because one of the things about chopsticks is it's basically an extension of your regular, you know, your hot wing eating grip, but just made into long sticks.
Right.
And tweezers are similarly like the extension of your little pulling out a splinter grip, but made into a functional tool. So other tools like pliers, you have to squeeze the whole hand to do a little tiny action, is less compatible. And so my experiment was to see whether the more compatible tools were easier for people to incorporate into their body.
On to wing number 7,
All
hot
right.
sauce number 7. So now we got a Scotch bonnet hot pepper sauce from Grace. The company is Grace. I don't know an actual person named Grace that makes hot sauce. But we're getting up there.
Scotch bonnet.
Yeah.
That has like kind of an ominous feel to it because
Yeah,
I've actually
it's-
heard of it as being a scary pepper, so I'm ready.
All right, so let's just dig in.
All right.
See how this goes.
Yeah, that's getting there.
Yeah, that's a lot spicier. So one of the things that I read when I was going through some of your notes was the rubber hand illusion. I was wondering if you could kind of explain what that is and like what you would use it for in the experiment.
Well, I alluded to the fact that my dissertation was whether or not you incorporate tools into your body. And what I left out is that it's pretty hard to measure what is and is not part of your body. So the rubber hand illusion is this really great tool for manipulating what is and what is not part of your body, because, you know, you can't like have a control condition where somebody doesn't have a body because you just can't ethically, feasibly. So the rubber hand illusion is an awesome technique. Basically, you have a rubber hand in front of you, and you have your real hand next to the rubber hand, but occluded from vision. And what the experimenter then does is simultaneously stroke any part of the real hand and the rubber hand at the same time. And what happens is you experience multisensory integration. You have the felt information that's out of sight, and you have the seen information of this hand, and you bind them together, and you start to feel like your hand is in the position of the rubber hand. The best part about it is that the experimenter can then stab the rubber hand with a knife, and the experimenter, or the experimentee, will jump back, they'll have a whole fear-related response, they'll have a spike in their heart rate, they'll start sweating. So they really do seem to feel like it's part of their hand.
I guess there are like ways or conditions under which the rubber hand illusion would fail. So like if the rubber hand was like a different skin tone or something, or can you elaborate a bit?
Sure, yeah. Well, as you can see, I have lots of different skin tones. And luckily for me, skin tone doesn't seem to be a really strong determinant for the illusion. What does mess with the illusion is skin texture, which is why it was so critical that these rubber hands, as you observed earlier, have pores and really realistic textural details. So they have had people successfully experience the rubber hand illusion with one of those Hulk smash giant green hands. So color seems to be less important than texture. That said, if you have a really strong identity with a particular skin tone, you're more likely to experience a stronger illusion if you've got a matching skin tone. So people who are really white participants who look at a black rubber hand who really strongly identify as not black have a stronger rubber hand illusion with a Caucasian hand. And a black hand, and the opposite is true. But, so if you have perhaps the left hand is rubber and your right hand is the one that's being stroked, that won't work. If you have the hand oriented in a non-plausible position, then that won't work. So what I mean by that is, like, if this was facing me, obviously that can't be my hand because my arm doesn't like that kind of bend. That'll cause it to fail. If you are receiving the tactile stimulation on your index finger, but you're watching the middle finger of the rubber hand be stroked, that won't work. So there's lots of conditions under which it doesn't work. Interestingly, if you have your palm being stroked and your hand is face up, but the rubber hand is face down doing its palm stroke, that will work. So
Wow.
as long as it's an anatomically plausible position and it's the same location, it seems to succeed.
So there's probably some kind of like threshold, I guess, for when the illusion fails and when it works. And do people do a lot of work on?
Yeah, a lot of work has been done on orientation thresholds, for example, and
So we're moving on to wing number 8. And what do we got here? We got dinosaur barbecue, devil's duel, habanero, hot pepper sauce.
okay,
That sounds
dinosaurs and devils and habaneros and hot peppers.
Yeah.
That's how you know it's going to be intense.
And the description said it's from the gates of hell.
Oh gosh.
So this should be pretty interesting, I think.
My.
Also from Syracuse, New York.
Is it? Oh, yeah.
All right.
All right, so if we die here, I'm going to blame it on Liz. Cheers.
It's probably a slow build because that
I'm
didn't
not
hit me
feeling a
that much.
whole lot right now.
I probably shouldn't give another bite. That's just asking for retribution from the gates of hell. By
Yeah, I
dinosaurs.
feel like my lips are going to start hating me in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
But, so it seems like a lot of body perception research and science kind of relies a lot on the visual system. So how do you think this changes in blind individuals?
Well, I actually had not really thought about this. I know that there's a rubber hand illusion called the somatic rubber hand illusion, which they've done with great success on blindfolded participants. And so in the somatic rubber hand illusion, you have the rubber hand, and then you have your hand, and the experimenter holds your left hand and directs you to stroke the index finger of the rubber hand while he is simultaneously stroking the index finger of your real hand. So you're getting tactile information from your real hand and from the finger of your left hand. And what this does is it causes people to feel like their real hand, their right hand, is located in the position of the rubber hand because they're getting that information on the left finger. And sometimes people even start to feel like this hand is has changed in a way that it matches the weird texture they're detecting with this finger.
Interesting.
And so my initial thought was, oh, well, just do the somatic rubber hand illusion on a blind person. They'd probably still feel it. They'd probably still have a very similar body representation. But it turns out that congenitally blind people don't experience the somatic rubber hand illusion, which is terribly interesting.
Okay, so we're on to our last 2 hot sauces. This one is a ghost pepper hot sauce by Dave's Gourmet. It's so hot, it's spooky. So I'm a little easily spooked.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. All right.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
really painful.
Doing all right?
Yep. I kind of have a cold, so I can't really breathe through my nose. So every time I breathe through my mouth, it's just like reiterating the spiciness of this experience. Yeah, maybe this ranch dressing will help.
That's blue cheese, by the way.
Blue cheese. I'm gonna eat this really friendly #2. Some blue cheese.
Well, that was a big step up.
Yeah, what the heck? There was like no preparation for that. I just I need the tear napkin, separate from the spice napkin.
Ah, it hurts to breathe.
Okay.
Wow. I'm gonna keep drinking
Pinky out.
Exactly.
Oh, that's something else. Oh boy. I can't remember what question I was gonna ask. Oh, my head is like in the clouds right now. Sweating. Alright. Question 9. So there have been a few like weird sensory illusion that have cropped up recently on the internet that have been relatively divisive in terms of what people see or hear, such as like the dress. Some people see it as like white and gold, and others as blue and black. Or the very famous like Laurel and Yancey thing that just came out recently, where people hear either Laurel or Yancey in a single auditory recording. So, do you think there's a way for people to like trick their brain into thinking, into perceiving one or the other, or do you think it's just kind of like hardwired into our head?
Well, I love these phenomena because finally, when people say, what do you study? I can be like, I study things like the dress and like Laurel and Yanny. Because otherwise people are like, you study hands. No, that's not what I study. I study perception, and perception is so fascinating because it's not like you're getting an exact representation of the world as it truly is. All of your sensory systems have a lot of noise, and so the act of perceiving is interpreting these noisy signals, and that interpretation comes with this unconscious baggage of your past experiences, your expertise, and importantly, your expectations about the world. So a lot of these internet phenomena become so divisive, so phenomenal, because they get posted by celebrities who say things like, is this dress white and gold or blue and black? So then you're going in with these pretty intense expectations about what you should see. Or is this Laurel, is this Yanny? And as a result of that, you have pretty strong bias to perceive one of those two things in these very ambiguous stimuli.
Right.
And the reason these ones are so popular is because they're not bistable, which is when you can simultaneously or easily switch back and forth between two interpretations. For some people they are, but for the vast majority of people you can't go back and forth. So an example of a bistable image would be that vase-face illusion. Maybe you see the face first, but the longer you look at it, you can easily say, oh, but that's a vase, oh, but that's a face.
Right.
So that's a bistable image, but these aren't. I can talk about the internet phenomena, but I also want to plug what I study in particular, which is another really strong multisensory illusion called the size-weight illusion. Should have made room for that. All right, your job is to lift these up. You can do them at the same time or one at a time or whatever you want. The illusion is strong enough that I feel pretty confident you can do whatever you want and still experience it.
I'm going to try one at a time.
All right, that's probably good.
Okay. So,
What did you think?
I feel like this one's lighter.
Uh-huh, and that one's heavier?
Yeah.
Do you think that's like twice as heavy?
Can I lift it up again?
Yeah, go for it, whatever you want.
Seems like a third. Maybe.
Yeah, it's a good guess. So they actually weigh the exact same amount.
What?
And you can look them up again, and you won't be able to change your opinion.
No way.
And that's because of these expectations that I mentioned. So you go into this experience with the expectation that a tiny little thing made out of wood should weigh a lot less than a big thing made out of wood. And this expectation is so powerful that when you go to pick it up and your little muscle fibers and spindles are saying, hey brain, it's the same weight, it's cool, it's the same weight, your brain is like, no. And you just shut down that muscular feedback and completely overwrite that. And you have this story that you tell yourself, this is a big thing, silly muscles tell me it weighs the same amount as the little thing, so they can't be trusted, I'm a brain, I know what's what. This is clearly an extra light big thing, and this is clearly an extra heavy little thing. Do you remember what you thought of the dress when you first saw that?
So the dress, I initially saw it as white and gold.
Yep.
And then I could only see it as blue and black eventually.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, so the switch back and forth is pretty common for a lot of people with the dress.
Yeah, I definitely only see blue and black in this.
Only blue and black.
Yeah.
All right, well, have you heard of color constancy?
No, I have not.
So this is your brain's way of interpreting the world under messy sensory information. And we all talk about these chairs that we're sitting in as red, but if the lights were off in the room, would they still be red? Your brain would still be able to tell, yeah, they're red because we've got color constancy. So under different illumination conditions, you can still identify the appropriate color of an object because you can kind of make predictions based upon your past experience with different levels of illumination and light, what colors should be what. This is a pretty famous image of a cube here. And you can see one that's in a yellow light and one that's in a blue light.
Yeah.
Maybe you can sort of see how this relates to the grass, I don't know. But why don't you look at the blue square in the yellow illumination, blue square. So the blue square on the cube. And now look at the yellow square under the blue illumination.
Okay.
And the fact that you're able to pick out exactly what I'm talking about shows that your brain is interpreting these different colors under these different levels of illumination, color constancy, array. But what if I told you they're actually the exact same color in terms of their pixel value?
What? Oh my gosh. Oh god. Oh no. Now I feel really dumb.
I don't feel dumb. That's your brain being so smart. Look at how smart your brain is. It can tell what colors things are supposed to be.
Yeah, wow, that's incredible. So they are like the same kind of like this gray color.
Yeah,
But it's just under
you would never
these
interpret
filters.
them as gray because your brain is going through that extra labor to make sure you know the real, true, accurate.
Who knows what the brain is doing?
It's doing something.
Ralph, I thought we had a handle on this. I guess we don't.
Not even close.
Oh, my gosh. Coming up to the last question. But to get to the last question, we have to get through the last wave. And this is also from Dave's Gourmet, and this is called Insanity Sauce.
And I saw them putting a sauce on this and they added extra sauce. Which
Yeah,
is
I think
just
I think our producers just don't like us very
Exactly.
much.
That's what it is.
Anyways, this isn't gonna eat itself, so let's go for it. Cheers.
All right.
Kind of reset it a bit.
I mean, it's still got this really nice, smoky, kind of ketchup-y, smoky introduction that just turns into excruciating pain.
Yeah, now I'm feeling it a little more. Okay, final question. What cosplays can we expect to see next from you?
Yeah, so my crowning triumph of graduate school was my Furiosa cosplay, which
I do remember seeing that.
definitely came out really well. I really liked it because I got to make that whole arm, you know, I don't make arms all the time, but I got to make her arm out of craft, so that was awesome. My focus recently has been on making cosplays for my cat, I mentioned before.
Right.
So I'm really going for this Saru costume for this Halloween for my cat.
Do you go to any conventions or anything?
Yeah, I used to go to conventions all the time. Kind of the theme of my life is that my life changed in graduate school and I had a lot to do, so I haven't been to a convention Other than that, I went to the 50th anniversary Star Trek convention
Oh.
because you can't miss the 50th anniversary of Star Trek. But that's the last convention I've been to.
Awesome. Would you ever consider going to like Comic-Con or anything?
Yeah, I'd love to go to a Comic-Con someday.
Yeah, it's just notoriously difficult to like get tickets and stuff. Sell it pretty quickly, I think.
Yeah, probably I couldn't go to the California ones, but I have a friend who's reliably gotten into New York Comic-Con.
Oh, okay.
And then I think you can go, but maybe you can't go to like the big panels, because those are big, expensive tickets.
Right. All right. Well, Veronica, we made it.
We made it. I don't know how much I'm making it right now, but.
My mouth isn't making it right now. That's for sure.
Nope. Kind of like having her palpitations a little bit or my spicy.
Well, you made it through 10 questions. You made it through 10 hot sauces.
Woohoo!
You're our first inaugural guest.
I've blown your mind with some weird illusions.
Yeah. Completely destroyed my brain with weird mind-body illusions and destroying my perceptions of the world, destroying my perceptions of what my brain is supposed to be doing. So I'd say this is an incredible thing to study, and I hope you continue to do so. If you have any plugs you'd like to make, like where people can find you on social media, or what you're up to nowadays with your research, go ahead and speak into any of the cameras.
Yeah, so I'm on ResearchGate if you're a sciencey person, and I have a paper coming out in January on how people can experience the size-weight illusion in virtual reality when they're not actually lifting any real weight at all. So that's a real mind-blowing
Oh boy.
experience. Look for that paper in the Journal of Presence. It will be open access, so you should be able to check it out in January.